The Okavango Delta sparkled under the African sun, its waters teeming with life. Fishermen paddled quietly in mokoros, traditional canoes, weaving through papyrus-lined channels. Birds of every hue darted through the air, and elephants splashed in the shallow waters. Thandi, a 14-year-old inventor, watched this scene from her workshop on the delta's edge. Her small lab was cobbled together with solar panels, scrap metal, and a tangled web of wires, her sanctuary of invention. Thandi's dream was simple but ambitious: to protect the Okavango Delta for generations. Pollution from upstream settlements and drought had begun to choke the once pristine waters. Her solution? A solar-powered water purification system she called Delta Pure, a network of floating devices that could filter toxins while harnessing sunlight to power themselves. Her younger brother Bobo, a curious 10-year-old with a knack for mischief, was her unofficial assistant. That morning, he hovered over her shoulder, peering at her prototype. "Thandi," he said, poking a screwdriver into the device. "What happens if this thing zaps a crocodile?" Thandi snatched the tool away, rolling her eyes. "Bobo, it doesn't zap anything. It cleans the water. And don't touch that. It's delicate." "Delicate like your temper," Bobo quipped, dodging a playful swat from Thandi. Thandi turned back to her work. The next day marked the start of the Global Water Futures Summit, held in Maun. Delegates from across the world, including engineers from South America's Andes and Canada's First Nations leaders, were gathering to discuss the future of water conservation. Thandi's invention was to be the centerpiece of the summit. Maun buzzed with excitement. Delegates arrived, clad in vibrant outfits that showcased their heritage. The Andean engineers brought intricate textiles, and the First Nations leaders carried hand-carved water vessels as gifts. The summit venue, a massive eco-friendly dome built with sustainable materials, was a marvel in itself. Thandi set up Delta Pure in the demonstration area, her heart pounding with anticipation. The crowd gathered as she began to explain her invention. "The Okavango is the lifeblood of Botswana," she said. "Delta Pure uses solar power to filter pollutants while preserving the delicate balance of our ecosystem. It's not just for the Delta, it can work anywhere in the world." The audience erupted in applause, and Thandi felt a swell of pride. Among the onlookers, she noticed a woman in a flowing Andean shawl who introduced herself as Camilla, an engineer specializing in high-altitude water systems. "Your work is remarkable, Thandi," Camilla said. "We face similar challenges in the Andes. Perhaps we can collaborate." Thandi beamed. "I'd love that." Later, Thandi overheard groups discussing how Delta Pure could be adapted to regions around the world. Some mentioned deploying it in the Mekong Delta. Others imagined it helping communities along the Amazon River. The possibilities were endless, and Thandi's heart swelled with hope. That evening, as the summit attendees mingled and shared ideas, a shadow loomed over the celebration. In the early hours, Thandi was awoken by an urgent knock on her door. It was Bobo, wide-eyed and breathless. "Thandi, something's wrong with Delta Pure." Rushing to the demonstration area, they found chaos. One of the devices was sputtering, spewing dark, oily water. Delegates gathered, murmuring in concern. Thandi knelt beside the device, her hands trembling as she examined the damage. Someone had tampered with it. "This was intentional," Camilla said, her voice tense. "Sabotage." "Who would do this?" Thandi asked, her mind racing. Sabotaging Delta Pure wasn't just an attack on her, it was an attack on the Delta itself. Bobo, meanwhile, pointed at the dark water. "It looks like the swamp monsters have been here," he said dramatically, earning a chorus of chuckles from nearby children. Determined to uncover the truth, Thandi, Bobo, and Camila began investigating. They were soon joined by Elijah, a Canadian First Nations hydrologist with a calm demeanor and an encyclopedic knowledge of water systems. Their first clue was a set of muddy footprints leading away from the scene. Not exactly subtle, Elijah noted, crouching to examine the tracks. Bobo, ever the mischief maker, piped up, "Maybe it's the ghost of the Delta." Thandi shot him a look. "This isn't a joke, Bobo." As they followed the trail, they discovered a discarded wrench engraved with a corporate logo, a company notorious for exploiting natural resources. It didn't take long to piece together the motive. The saboteurs wanted to discredit Delta Pure and halt its deployment, which would disrupt their operations. With the summit reaching its climax, Thandi and her team had only hours to repair Delta Pure and restore faith in her invention. Camilla worked on reinforcing the device's design, while Elijah used his hydrological expertise to troubleshoot the contamination. Even Bobo proved useful, distracting curious onlookers with tales of the Delta's wildlife. "The crocodiles like clean water too," Bobo announced to a group of children, pointing toward the river. "You don't want angry crocodiles, do you?" The villagers and summit delegates rallied around them. Elders shared stories of how they had protected the Delta in the past, and young attendees offered their technical skills. The Andean engineers suggested a filtration method inspired by ancient Incan aqueducts, while the First Nations leaders taught Thandi a technique for monitoring water flow using natural indicators. Despite the urgency, the atmosphere was one of hope and unity. As the repairs neared completion, Thandi looked around at the team she had brought together. "We're not just saving Delta Pure," she said. "We're proving that collaboration can solve even the biggest challenges." On the final day of the summit, the repaired Delta Pure devices were unveiled. This time, they performed flawlessly, filtering even the most polluted samples into crystal-clear water. The audience erupted in applause, and Thandi was invited to speak. "This isn't just my invention," she said, her voice steady. "It's the result of everyone's contributions, from Botswana to the Andes to Canada. Together we can protect our water, our planet, and our future." The crowd stood in ovation, cheering her name. Even Bobo puffed his chest out with pride. "That's my sister," he told anyone within earshot. As the summit concluded, Thandi received invitations to collaborate on water projects around the world. Delta Pure became a symbol of innovation and hope, proving that Africa was not just participating in global progress, it was leading it. Months later, the impact of Delta Pure was being felt far beyond the Okavango. Videos of the summit had gone viral, showcasing not just the technology, but the spirit of unity and ingenuity that had brought it to life. Schools around the world included Thandi's story in their curricula, inspiring a new generation of environmental leaders. Thandi and her team began work on expanding Delta Pure's reach. Camilla spearheaded installations in the Andes, while Elijah adapted the technology for icy Canadian rivers. Meanwhile, Bobo, now self-appointed chief tester, became famous for his humorous field reports, often involving dramatic reenactments of Delta Pure's triumphs over imaginary villains. Back in Botswana, Thandi worked tirelessly, improving the system's efficiency and dreaming up new inventions. One evening, as the sun set over the delta, she and Bobo sat by the water, watching the animals come to drink. "You know," Bobo said, tossing a pebble into the water, "I think the elephants would be proud of us. They're the kings of the delta, right?" Thandi smiled, ruffling his hair. "Maybe. But it's up to us to keep it safe for everyone, elephants, crocodiles, and people alike." Inspired by Thandi's success, the Okavango communities came together to form a Delta Guardianship Council. Representatives from villages, conservation groups, and schools collaborated to monitor and protect the waterways. Children organized clean-up drives, while elders shared traditional knowledge about the delta's cycles. International partnerships flourished. Engineers from South America and Canada returned to Botswana to learn more about integrating Delta Pure's innovations into their regions. Camila brought with her a group of Andean students who marveled at the delta's biodiversity, while Elijah facilitated virtual exchanges between Canadian and Botswanan schools, encouraging young people to share their conservation ideas. One memorable day, the council hosted a festival to celebrate their achievements. The air was filled with laughter, the aroma of grilled fish, and the rhythmic beats of traditional drums. Children raced each other in decorated mokoros, and storytellers wove tales of the delta's guardians, immortalizing Thandi's journey in legend. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the delta in hues of gold and crimson, Thandi stood before the crowd. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice clear and steady. "The delta's story is ours to protect and share. Together we're stronger than any challenge." Cheers erupted, and the festival continued late into the night, a testament to the unity and hope that Delta Pure had inspired.